How are you all? I hope you're all very, very well this lovely Wednesday morning. So my name is Becky and we're going to go through this lovely cheeky monkey brush party painting. Now, isn't he adorable? I'm so looking forward to this one. I can't wait to see your fantastic paintings of this monkey. So, like all of our paintings, you're more than welcome to change the colours. You can change everything about this painting. I'm just going to give you the basics so you can follow along. You can take my instructions as literally as you want, so you can recreate this exactly, or you can maybe add like a, oh, do you know, I've missed his arm. I've just realised he's not got a hand. Oh, that's fine. Okay, so I was going to say in one of the monkey's hands you could have a banana. There we go. It's fine. He's just got one hand. That's fine. At least he's swinging from that one. So you could put a banana in there somewhere. You could put lots of different flowers. You could even do two monkeys swinging from the vines. You can do so much with this one. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the background and we'll build up all the layers nice and slowly until we end up with our finished painting. So we'll go through all of the equipment first and then we will get started with our paintings. So if you would like to do exactly the same as this with all these colours, you just need your primary colours and black and white. So our primary colours are red, yellow and blue. So with those three colours you can mix any colour that you need. So yeah, feel free to pop those on your palette, plus any other colours. You could put purples in here, you could put lots of other colours. So that's my palette, and then I've got white and black. We're probably going to use quite a lot of white for this painting, so it might be worth keeping that nearby so you've got plenty of white paint if you need it. So that's my palette. There we go. And then brushes wise, we only really need two brushes for this one. So I would probably use a big brush for the background. Always very, very helpful when it comes to doing backgrounds. So you want a big wide brush, something a little bit like this. So you might have a cropped brush or you might have a square brush with the bristles all the same length. Both are actually fine because they're just going to be using, we're going to be using the width of the brush. So we're going to get a nice big thick brush strokes. And then I've got my smaller version. And this one is going to be for the leaves and then for his eyes, nose and mouth. So we're going to do most of it with the big brush, really. You might have, where did I put it? You might have a brush that looks a bit like this, so a round brush, and that's also absolutely fine. You might have a bigger version than this one, and probably a slightly neater brush as well. This one is a really good brush to use if you find these ones a bit tricky. So it might be worth grabbing another brush just in case, like as backup. But yeah, these two, if not all three. Then we just need some water to mix our brushes in and clean our paints and stuff. So we've got a bit of water in here and a tissue. So it can be a bit of kitchen roll, a napkin, anything just to keep our brushes nice and clean once we've rinsed them in the water. So that's everything you need. It might be worth grabbing an apron or popping an old t-shirt on, something you don't mind getting a little bit of paint on, because paint is a little bit tricky to get out of clothing and also out of like carpets and things like that. So it might be worth just putting maybe a bit of newspaper down or just having wet wipes at the ready just in case, because they're really, really good at getting paint off everything. So that is everything you need, plus a canvas. So you need something to paint on. Very important. And that's all the equipment I'm going to use today. So the event is going to be for running for about an hour and a half, but the timing is up to you guys. You can pause the video and you can rewind it as many times as you want to. So I'll be finishing roughly around 12:30. Is it 11? Yeah, it's 11. I can't remember what the time was then. Yeah, 12:30. But yeah, you could spend all day painting this one. You could do the background, you could pause it, and then you can just click the link again and then come back as and when you want to. And we also have on the right hand side of your screen, there should be a little button or a little section that's got live chat written on it. If that's not there, it just means that you're not logged into YouTube through a Google account or a YouTube account. So if you want to write comments or ask questions throughout the event, then use that as much as you need to. So you do need to be signed in to be able to use it. And I will see your comments coming through on my screen so I can answer them as we're going through. Really, really helpful if you've got questions, because obviously I can't see what you're doing. So you have to kind of explain it to me if there's something that's going wrong. But I'm sure we'll be absolutely fine. So I'm just going to tilt that a little bit away. There we go. So when you're ready, guys, we are going to pick our big brush up from our water. So I'm giving it a good rinse around in the water. Mine's kind of been sitting in there, so it's already quite wet. So I'm getting the brush right the way down to the bottom of the cup, getting all those bristles nice and wet. And the background can be any colour you want. I think it would look quite nice maybe with a purpley background. I'm going to stick with blue, but I think purple would be really nice as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some white and I'm going to move it to a new part of the palette. So I've got an area to mix my paints. And because the brush was quite watery, we need to mix our water around into the paint to make sure that it's going to spread the paint. Because if it's just the paint by itself, it's going to take a long time to fill the background. And it's also going to take a long time to dry as well. So plenty of water mixed into the paint. And then you can add whatever colour you want to that white. So I'm going to stick with the blue. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of that blue, mix it into the white and smudge that brush around, getting all the paint to mix in together. So I'm not going to worry too much about it being completely mixed. It's quite nice if you've got some bits that where you can see the white coming through, so that you get a nice varied background. So you might have some bits that are really light, other bits that are really, really dark. So both are absolutely fine. I quite like it to be a little bit more pastel, so I'm going to use quite a lot of white in my blue. And we're using our brush widthways, so horizontally. So it means all our bristles are in a line this way, going flat. And we're going to start at the top and just drag our brush up and down like this. Nice big brush strokes. And we're pretty much filling the canvas with these brush strokes. So in some bits, like I said, you can add a bit more of the darker colour. You can add some neat white in as well. Like I said, we're going to use quite a lot of white in this painting. So you could do like neat white on top, and that will really lighten up your colour on the canvas. So rather than always mixing it on the palette, have a go at putting some of the colours straight onto the canvas and just keep going with the same brush strokes to make sure it blends out. So this one has got quite a lot of layers to it. So we do want to make sure we keep adding the water to the paint. Otherwise, it's going to take a very, very long time to dry. If you've got loads of time and you're taking your time throughout the day to paint it, then feel free to use more paint than water. That's absolutely fine as well. But yeah, I would just get this background on fairly quickly because we're going to cover up most of it anyway, so it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just kind of whacking the paint on and yeah, moving the brush up and down. Again, you don't have to do these exact brush strokes. If you want to make it a little bit more messy, maybe make it look like there's some more leaves in the background, you could do messy brush strokes going all different directions, and that would look really, really lovely as well. So there's loads of different options for your backgrounds and for all of the painting. So if you would like to try something different and you're not sure how to do it, just pop a little message in the live chat and I can help you out as we're going through. But yeah, every couple of minutes I'm picking up more paint, more water, making sure it's really well mixed in together, the water and the paint, because if the water is a little bit separate to the paint, you'll find that you'll just get drips, and they're really tricky to cover with acrylics. So if it's looking like it's just a puddle of water next to your paint or not quite mixed in or on top of, then just spend a couple more minutes just mixing the paint with the water on your palette before it goes on the canvas, just to make sure we're not going to get those drips, because they really are a pain to try and get rid of later. And yeah, so obviously we're painting the front of the canvas, and normally when these go up on your wall at home, if you don't paint your edges, it's really, really obvious when they're not done. So I would definitely, once you've done the front of your canvas, I would choose a colour to paint all the edges. So if you've got a canvas like mine, where it goes round the sides, you definitely want to use any colour. It's quite nice to I don't know, you can either match what's on the front of your canvas and just continue that around the sides, or you can do a completely different colour and add a nice border going all the way around. And it just looks really, really professional when they're up on your walls at home. So definitely go ahead and do your edges. Now you can do them at the end, you don't have to do them now. But while we've got the paint on the brush, if you want to do the same colour that's on the front of the canvas, then you probably want to do it now. And as you start to see the paint dry slightly, you might see a couple of little white dots that start to appear. So white dots is in the canvas shining through. And it just means that the paint might not be quite thick enough on that particular part of the canvas. And I can see, looking really closely, that I've got quite a few little white dots on my painting. And I'm just going to take a couple of minutes just to go back over some of those areas that the paint isn't quite thick enough and it's not quite covered. But I think we're nearly there with this background. I'm going to pop a little bit more blue on the brush and get it on that top corner. So you could do like a mix of colours on your background. You could do a whole load of different colours behind your monkey, and that would be incredible as well. So what I would definitely suggest doing is taking lots of photos of your painting after each step. Well, not loads of loads of photos after each step. I would take lots of step-by-step pictures. You don't want to take like 10 of your background, but yeah, once you've done your background, take a little photo, and then when you've done the next step, take another photo. You get what I mean? And then when you get to the end, you can take a big step back and you can see your final painting, and you can also look back and see all those steps that we've gone through to create our cheeky monkey masterpiece. So I'm just going back in and making sure that all those little white specks are completely covered with paint. Sometimes it kind of looks like the white paint, but if you look closely, you can tell that it's the canvas. And you just take a little closer inspection and add a bit more paint to it. So once you've done your background, if you're still going with your background, just pause the video as much as you need to. So if you're not quite there, just pause it, do your background, and then you can join back in live as and when you want to. But the video will just carry on playing from where you left off. That's all good. So if you haven't done so already, do your edges. Very, very important. Although I'd probably leave the bottom edge until the end because we have got some wafting to do. And if you've got all the edges painted, you've not really got anywhere to hold the canvas. So you can either hold it around the bottom edge like this, or if you have already done your edges, because I didn't really say it earlier, then you can hold around the back of your canvas like this around the edges, and you can waft it up and down. Just be really careful that you don't drop it. I am very, very clumsy and I've dropped my canvas many times. Luckily I've got wooden flooring. If I had carpet I would be in a lot of trouble. But yeah, just don't drop it because you don't want to ruin your paintings. We're just gently wafting until it's a bit more dry. So like I said, if you don't want to get too messy, you can leave your edges till the end because then you've got a bit more space to hold your sides. But yeah, waft it. And if you don't want to waft, or if you've already done your edges and you've got nowhere to hold it and you're worried about dropping it, then you can always grab a hairdryer. Hairdryers are really, really great when it comes to painting. You can dry it pretty much instantly, and I always have a hairdryer right next to my painting station just to speed things up a little bit. So if your painting is really, really thick with paint, then just waft for a couple of minutes, take a little break, grab a drink, and take a step back, take a photo of your backgrounds, and I'm hoping that you're all okay with those brush strokes so far. So I'll just talk through the next couple of steps while you're finishing up your backgrounds. So the next thing is to add in all the vines. So we're going to make up a brown colour. So we're going to mix up a few different colours, and we're going to need to go back to them. So we're going to start by mixing this dark brown colour, which is going to be used later on for our monkey. So it might be worth maybe grabbing a second palette or a second plate if you want to save a bit of space, or you can just remake the colours again. That's totally fine as well. So we're going to do the vines, then we've got all of the leaves to add on. So we're going to do the dark leaves, then the light leaves, and then we're going to do our monkey. And the monkey does look really strange because we start with this tummy. So we start with this tummy here, this chest, and it looks really, really strange. I think it looks really strange until we've added the arms and the legs. So you're just going to keep going and don't give up. And just keep picturing the final piece in your head, because it does get there and it looks amazing. So we start with the belly, then we do the mouth and the face. Then we go back to our dark brown colour, and we're going to do all of his body and the arms and his little funky hairdo at the top. And then finish with his feet, hands, however many hands you want to do, and then all of the features on the front. So that's the whole process. Obviously, we're going to take it nice and slowly, and I will hopefully explain things nice and clearly so you can follow along without any problems. So I would, for the next step, possibly switch to a smaller brush so that we can get our nice delicate vines in. And again, you could do these all in green. You don't have to do them brown, because I think vines are green as well, actually. So yeah, choose what colour you want to do your vines in. So all of these bits in here, what the monkey's swinging from, and move on to your smaller brush. So give your brush a your big brush a rinse off in your water and pop it to one side, because we're going to use it again, and you don't want to have dried up paint in those bristles. So give your big brush a clean, pop it to one side, and then grab your slightly smaller brush. So to mix up a dark brown, what you need to do is add a bit of red, yellow, and black together. So it might be worth doing red and yellow first. So I've got equal amounts of both popped next to each other. I'm going to push the brush round so it gets to a nice orange colour. I know that looks really, really red on the camera, but it is quite an orange colour. So something a little bit orangey like this. And then we need to pop some black into it. Now, if it goes a bright green colour, or a dark green colour, sorry, it just means you might have a bit too much yellow into it. And if you don't want to have green vines and you want to stick with the brown vines, then you might just need to pop a bit more red and black in. So I've got something a little bit like this. I mean, it's slightly greeny, it looks a bit sludgy. So I'm going to pop a bit more red and a little bit more black in. There we go, it's a bit more of a chocolate brown now, which is fantastic. And then just to make it a little bit more fluid, so a little bit smoother, I'm going to add a little bit more water into that paint. So I'm doing a couple of brush loads of water where I'm going from the cup and going straight into the paint and mixing it round without meeting the tissue in between. So go straight from the water into the paint, mix it up so it just goes a bit more runny. Something a little bit like this. And if you've got the same brush as me, where you've got long bristles and short bristles, you always want to be leading with your short bristles. I've just put my thumb directly in the white paint, but that's fine. Yeah, so short bristles always need to be leading the way. So for the first couple, we're going to be starting with our long bristles facing upwards. Now you might have a round brush and you might be using that one as your smaller brush, and that's fine. You dropped it. You just need to use it like you would a pen or a pencil. So hold it nice and close and then just drag it downwards. So when you're ready, have your long bristles facing up, and I'm going to start roughly about a hand, so closed hand in from the left hand side, and I'm going to drag this line down, not too neat. I'm actually going to make it a little bit wavy, so I'm kind of bringing it over to the left and over to the right, and then somewhere towards the bottom half, so somewhere around here, I'm just going to twist the brush all the way round so it's going sideways. Just bring this a bit closer. So as I get to the corner, because we want to always lead with the short bristles, my whole brush is going to turn to the left and then back. So it's now upside down. So we've just done a whole sort of turn, and I'm going to go off the side of the canvas. So basically just making a big U shape. So it's like a bit of vine that's come down and then back up again. And then off of this one, we can add lots of other lines going next to it, crossing over, maybe dropping down a little bit lower. Just like a wiggly line over the top. So don't think about it too much because you don't want it to be too neat. And I think the messier this bit is, the better it's going to look. So I've done a squiggly line going across it and then going a little bit lower down in some bits. And you can take it even further. So you could then add a couple of little extra lines sort of going off the side. I'd probably attach it to something there. There we go. And there's just loads of little flicky bits coming off all different ways to make it look nice and busy. So it's a nice full jungle in the background. So nice and messy. Don't spend too long making it really lovely, because you really don't need to. And we're going to cover a lot of this over with leaves. So we're not really going to see lots of these. We're then going to do another one of these, just a little bit smaller, over on the right-hand side. So once you've done the left-hand side, this little bit down here, we're going to do the same thing, but just not quite as far into the canvas. So I'm just leaving maybe about 1 finger width, like this. So it's not as wide as the hand that we did over on the left. So 1 finger width on the right-hand side. And then I'm going to do a slightly shorter one. And maybe slightly thinner as well. So it's not going to come all the way down as low as our first one. And I'm going to wiggle it all the way back up again. It's already starting to look like a jungle, isn't it? It's very exciting. And then again, you can add lots of little wiggly bits coming off of this. Kind of going over the top, snaking round. Oh, do you know what would look good? A snake, huh? You could do a snake wrapped around the tree, maybe. Or you could do lots of things. So I said snaking round and I just thought, oh, snake. I think that would look really cute, actually. So the last couple that we're going to do for the vines is this one here. So this one that's going across our canvas is our main one, because that's where the monkey's hanging from. So you can do this wherever you want it to go, but just bear in mind that we need to have enough space for our monkey to fit. So I'm going to put mine about 1/3 of the way up. No, 1/3 of the way down from the top. So if you picture your canvas in 3 even sections, so use your hands for measurements, it really, really helps. So if you look at your canvas or your bit of paper, whatever you're working on, put your hands on this side like this and have a look at where the 3 even sections might be. So above my hand, I've got a section here. In between my hands, I've got another one. And then below, I've got the 3rd one. So where my top hand is, my top arm, that is where I want my first vine to go. So it's 1/3 of the way down from the top. Once you've found that bit, I mean, it doesn't have to be exactly 1/3, just somewhere around this top area on the left-hand side. We then need to find the other side. And it doesn't really matter where it ends. I'm going to do it somewhere over on the right at the top. So I'm probably going to go about here. So it might be worth just popping your hand that's not got the paintbrush in on the other side of the canvas at the top somewhere. So you've got a starting point, which is over on the left, and then a finishing point, which is somewhere at the top on the right. And we're going to change our brush stroke as well. So now we're going to be using our brush horizontally. So like how we did the background. So the bristles are all going flat on the side like this. And we need to make sure we're leading with our short bristles, remember? So our long bristles are now pointing to the left-hand side. So that when we do our brush stroke, we can swoop it nice and smoothly all the way up to our finger on the other side. So we're just adding like a big swooping line in. And I'm probably going to make this one a little bit bigger so that it looks like it could support a monkey swinging from it. So I'm just going to do a couple more lines, just going over the top of it, a little bit more messy, just to make it a little bit thicker. There we go. So this one's probably the thickest one out of all of them. And then once we've done that a little bit, we can add lots of wiggly lines like we did for every other bit, kind of going around the vine, snaking around. And if you want to add a snake in or something in your vines, now is a good time to do it. Once you've done all the droopy lines, so you could do like another little wiggly bit over there, you can add whatever you want to add. I'm trying to think of other things that you can add, and I'm struggling. But I'm sure you guys will have an idea of what you might want to add as an extra. But you don't have to add anything. I'm just waffling on. You can just keep it as a monkey, which does look really cute. So I'll leave that down to you guys to be as creative as you want to be. So I'm just adding lots of wiggly lines, just sort of filling in some of the gaps. So there's lots of little lines all over the place. Kind of looks a bit like spaghetti, kind of draped over everything. That's the bottom bits. And that's the top. So it's really messy, nothing too neat at this point. And we need to make sure this has a bit of time to dry before we do our leaves, because otherwise our leaves end up looking a little bit murky. So grab your hairdryer and give it a quick blow, or grab your edges and waft vigorously to get it nice and dry. So I'm hoping that you're all okay with those brush strokes. If there's any bits that is a bit confusing or you're not quite sure about, then just rewind as many times as you want to. Go back over those brush strokes lots and lots of times until you're happy with it. But by the time you get to the end of the vines, you'll probably be experts at using that brush. And if you're really not sure and it's just not going right on the front of the canvas, you can always turn your canvas back to front and maybe do a couple of practice ones on the back. That's really quite handy. So yeah, don't stress, just have a little practice and pop it on. So let's just check how dry this is. So a good way to test if it's dry or not is to give your paint a very, very light tap. Now I can see that that's definitely not dry whatsoever, but these bits are. So if obviously you get lots of paint on your fingertip, then it's still very, very wet. So keep wafting or blow drying until it is a bit more dry. And we can start doing the leaves on the bits that are dry. So don't worry too much about it all being completely dry, because it will eventually dry in time. Keep wafting. Yes, we're going to mix up a nice dark green for the next step, and then we're going to make a light green. And then you could add like different flowers in as well. So I only put a couple of dots in to look like some flowers in the background, but you could add like really big, nice pink flowers, maybe some yellow flowers, all in between the leaves. And that would look very, very lovely. Okay, that's kind of there. If it's still really, really wet, then just pause and take your time. It definitely does need to be fairly dry in some places, so you've got somewhere to start your leaves. And I'm going to carry on with that with the smaller brush. So give it a good rinse off, try and get all of the brown out of those bristles. And then into the blue that we used earlier, or if you haven't used blue for your background, don't worry, we can just mix blue, yellow and white together. I've already got blue and white on my palette because that's what I used for the background. So to save a little bit of time, let's just use that colour and add some yellow into it. And you've already got the colour. But yeah, if you need to mix it up as a new colour, then it's blue, yellow and a big blob of white for the first layer. And it does need to be fairly watery, because we have got the, oh, we're doing the dark ones, aren't we? Not as much white as I've just said, actually, for this one, because we're doing the dark ones first. I'm getting ahead of myself. We're making a dark green. So I would use mostly blue and yellow. Or you might have a green that's already mixed up in a bottle. I don't actually have green here, so I'm mixing yellow and blue together. That's better. So I've got blue and yellow and not so much white. So if you have followed me exactly, then you might just want to pop a little bit more blue and yellow into your green. So we have something a little bit like this, a nice dark mid-ish kind of green. And these leaves are going to be all different sizes, all different directions, and they are randomly placed, which means there's not really a structure as to where they need to go. So I'm going to just start in the top left corner, and I'm going to work my way down, and then I'm going to go across and then down the other side. So it's kind of framing where the monkey's going to go. So remember, with this brush, we always want to leave those short bristles. So I would start with a middle line for your leaf. So let's do a nice big one over here that hopefully is going to be nice and clear. So all I'm doing is dragging a line to sort of how big I want my leaf to be. And then I'm going to do one line going one side, so curving round, and another line going the other way to make a leaf shape. Kind of looks like a leaf, doesn't it? Kind of. Yep. And then we can fill it in using the wide part of the brush, so we get a nice even layer of paint across our leaf. There we go. So that is one way of doing leaves. You could just do it with one brush stroke. So if you're feeling a little bit adventurous and you want to try the brush a different way, what you can do is start from the end of your leaf, drag the brush down, but as you get halfway down your leaf, you can twist your brush, so it goes bigger in the middle, then you can twist it back, and you get a slightly different leaf. And both look absolutely fine. But I would definitely try to do big ones and small ones and some that come from the top and kind of just sort of cut in from the top so you only see half of the leaf, just peering in. And they can overlap each other as well. So yeah, I'm not worrying too much about the vines showing through because we've got the lighter leaves to go on top. So if once you've done the lighter leaves, you can still see the vines showing through, then you can always just pop another layer on over the top. So yeah, you can overlap them. So I'm going to do a couple more going down the vine, going all different ways. So I'm doing my middle line, and one going to the left, one going to the right. I think I'll probably add one that's going to overlap this one. So I'm actually going to start my next leaf in the middle of my leaf that I've just done. So that when you do your brush stroke coming out, it looks like one leaf is on top of the other. Okay, so I'm doing a couple of them attached to the vines. So some of the bigger ones looks quite nice when they're kind of touching your brown vines that we've added in. But when you get towards the bottom, it might be quite nice to just do a couple of really small ones that aren't quite attached and they're kind of just floating. So that one isn't actually, no, they both are actually touching. Let's do another one. That way. On the smaller ones, you can just do two brush strokes. You can do one going to one side and one going to the other. And if you're feeling a bit more confident and you're finding it nice and easy doing those leaves, then just try and do it with just the two brush strokes. So you can do one side and then the other. As long as they kind of start in a point and end in a point, whatever happens in between doesn't really matter because the leaves can be twisted all different ways. So they don't have to be perfect shapes all the way across the painting. So just have fun with it. But one thing I would say though, I know I've said a lot of things, but another thing that I would say is to maybe make some of your leaves a bit smaller towards the bottom. So on this like bottom third, I would just do lots of little leaves all kind of bunched up rather than loads of huge ones. I'd probably keep your really big ones towards the top. I'm doing some of the big ones overlapping. So I'm not going to do too many more on this side. I think I'm going to start moving my way across the top. So I'm going to do a couple of leaves coming off of this main vine. Remember to try and keep them all different sizes to make it look nice and varied. Need a bit more water in there, more paint. There we go. And then I'm going to do a couple more coming from the top. So it's kind of a free-for-all, this bit. You can literally add them wherever you want them to go and in any colour. So don't feel like you have to do exactly the same thing as what I'm doing. You can put them in any place. Just be careful if you are resting your hand on your canvas like I'm doing. Make sure you look first before you put it on, just in case you end up putting it in wet paint. Because I do that a lot, and it means that when you put it back down again, you end up putting some of that other paint on the canvas where it's not supposed to go. So just bear that in mind. And then I'm going to do a couple more leaves, like some bigger ones at the top. And then we can start working our way down the right-hand side as well. So it might be quite nice if one side, so I'm going to make the left side go all the way down to the bottom with the leaves, because the vine pretty much goes all the way down to the bottom edge. But on the right-hand side, my vine kind of stops around here. So I'm going to make it a little bit less symmetrical. So yeah, a few less leaves on the right-hand side, or whichever side you've got that's shorter. Otherwise, it looks a little bit too perfect. And you don't want that. Okay, I'm not going to do too many more of this darker colour, because I want to add these light ones over the top. So just a couple of little ones floating off down towards the bottom. Oh, look at that, the sun has just come out. How lovely. It was torrentially raining a couple of minutes ago. Okay, we are pretty much there with the dark ones, I think. But yeah, if you want to add more, then go ahead and add as many as you want to add. I am going to now add some more yellow and more white into my green. So I'm just going to carry on mixing on that same part of the palette where I've got that dark green. I'm going to pick a whole load of yellow up and a whole load of white. I probably need some more white. So if you need to top up any paints, then now is a good time to add more colours to your palettes. So yeah, yellow and then a bit more white. So it makes the green a much, much brighter and lighter colour. And hopefully the leaves that you've started with have kind of dried by now. Mine are pretty much dry, some of them. So I'm going to start adding a couple of leaves over the top. So these ones, the light ones, will... Oh, there's an aeroplane going past. So it's very loud. Yeah, these ones are going to stand out over the top of our other leaves. So let's do a big one going in front of these two, so you can see how they overlap each other. And you might need a bit more paint. Mine's gone very see-through. There we go. So you can either use more paint or you can do 2 layers depending on what your paint is like. And I'm just going to do lots of these kind of all over the place. doing exactly the same brush strokes as we did with our darker ones. So they can be coming off of the vines, they can be going over the top of them, they can be in their own little gaps. And they're all different sizes as well. So I'm going to do a big one cutting off that corner, I think. I think mine might be maybe a tiny bit too light. Maybe. So I might just put a little bit more blue in. But you can keep them really, really pale, or you can make them darker. I'll leave that up to you. And I'm going to do a couple more. Just going down the left-hand side. So these ones are pretty much dry now, so I can do a few more on these ones. So remember, if you're struggling with the brush stroke or anything, then just turn your canvas around and do a couple of practice ones on the back. That will be very helpful. And then don't forget to make them a little bit smaller towards the bottom. And some of mine are quite see-through, but I'm going to probably leave it till the end and then maybe add another layer of paint over the top. Because sometimes the more you go over the paint while it's wet, the more the layer below starts to come off. So you kind of end up going around in circles. So you're trying to add more paint, but it's just taking it off. So if you want to make it a bit thicker or cover more, let it dry and then do another layer on top. And then I'm moving across the top here, and then I'm going to go down the right-hand side. So hopefully, once you've done all of these leaves, they are going to fill the canvas a little bit more. So it should be looking, hopefully, quite busy, which will be fabulous. So remember, keep the ones at the top quite big, and then the ones towards the bottom a little bit smaller. And once you start feeling a bit more confident with your brush strokes, don't forget to try the more different shapes as well. So like on this one, I did it quite twisty, so it looks like the leaf is kind of turning around. So you can just wiggle your line a little bit more. And like I said before, as long as they start pointy and end pointy, whatever happens in the middle is fine. I think these ones might be a little bit too even, so I'm going to just throw a couple more in there to break it up a little bit. I think they're kind of starting to look a bit like lemons, actually, the more I'm doing them. So I'm going to make some of them just a little bit more green because they have just gone bright yellow. There we go, that's looking better. So that is what we're going to do for the background. We're going to leave the flowers and dots right till the end. So now is a really good time to take a photo of your painting, take a step back and let me know how you're getting on. So if you do have that live chat feature, now would be a good time to let me know how you're doing, because I've not heard from you guys. But if you don't have it, that's fine. You don't have to comment. I trust that you're doing fine. So yeah, we're kind of like halfway through now. We've only got a little bit left to do. So we do need to make sure that this does dry in time. So if you want to have a little break, feel free to pause, go grab some lunch. I mean, it is nearly 12 o'clock, so you're welcome to grab some lunch and then carry on painting whenever you're ready. Grab another drink, refresh the water maybe if it's looking really, really green. And give your brushes a really good rinse off. So we're going to go back to our big brush for the next step, and we're going to be using a light brown. So you could clean off your palette while you've mixed up your other colours if you want to, but try and keep your dark brown somewhere where you can go back to it. So I'm going to keep that where it is, but if you've got not a lot of space left, maybe just wipe up where you've mixed up the green. So you've got plenty of space for the light brown and the dark brown to go. So yeah, rinse off your small brush now and pop it to one side, because that one, we're going to use it right at the very end when we add in the smaller details. So make sure it's not got any green in there to dry up. Clean it off completely, wipe it on your tissue. And I'm going to pop that down there. And I'm going to use my big brush. You don't have to use your big brush. Oh, just kicking my monkey, sorry. Yeah, you don't have to use your big brush. You can use your smaller brush. I just think that it's much easier with the big brush to fill this space in much quicker and a lot more evenly. So if you want to have a slightly more textured monkey, then you could use your small brush, but it's up to you. I'll leave that down to you guys. So the colour we're going to be mixing is all the colours that we used earlier, so everything we used for the brown, except we're going to be adding a bit of white into it as well. So it's still got a little bit of black, but it's mostly mixed with white. So let's start with the white first. We've got a nice base, the light colour. So big blob of white to a clean part of the palette, mix it round. I mean, my water's a little bit blue, so it's making my white look blue, but it won't turn out blue. It should be fine. We'll see. So I've got my white mixed in with the water. And then I'm going to add a little bit of yellow, a little bit of red. That might have been quite a lot of red, actually. So we want it to end up like a light browny, beigey, peachy colour. Something a little bit like that. And then into that, we've got a light colour. We're going to just pop a tiny, incy little bit of black in it. It really doesn't need much, but it just takes it down from being such a bright orange colour. Just going to add a bit more white in there to make it a bit lighter. And the best way to test it is just to put it on the canvas. So it looks like it's going to be a good colour on the palette, but because it's going onto a blue background, sometimes it changes slightly when it goes on. So right in the centre of your painting, let's just do a little dash, just so we're happy with the colour. Or if you're not so confident to just whack it in the middle, pretty quite a bold move that, you can just do it on the side. It's probably a bit more sensible actually. So my monkey's tummy, this little bit in here, is going to be in the biggest section that we've got of blue. So I'm going to put mine right in the centre, so halfway across, and it's just below halfway down, so just a tiny bit lower than halfway. And we're going to start with a circle. So I'm going to use the flat part of the brush, and I'm going to push it round to make a circle. Now you can make this as big or as small as you like. I would probably say to start smaller first, so that we don't run out of space for his arms and legs. Because I kind of ran out of space for his leg on this one. So I might make my monkey just a tiny bit smaller. So we're just starting with a circle. Now the circle is probably going to depend, the size of it's going to depend on what size canvas you guys are using at home. I'm working on quite a big one. So a 16 by 20 inch canvas. So it's a really big one, and it's probably about the width of my hand. So if you're working on a slightly smaller canvas, then just don't make it as big. I'm probably gonna keep it that big for now. And then to make it look a little bit more like what we're going for, we need to make it a bit more like an oval shape. So if you think of a rugby ball or just an oval, except it's had a chunk taken out of the top for where his mouth is going to go. So I'm just going to make this a little bit more like a rugby ball shape, like a bit more of an oval. So I'm extending the bottom part a little bit more. And at the top, where the chin's going to come in, I'm kind of going to add like a smiley face line. So that's the top of my monkey's tummy. And I'm going to come down and up. Can you see that okay? Hopefully you can. I'll bring it a bit closer. The main thing for this bit is to try and make it a nice even shape all the way around. So you don't want one side to go all the way off this way and the other side not to go as far. Otherwise, it's going to have a slightly wobbly looking head. So something a little bit like this. And because he's a very fluffy monkey, let's just go around the edges and just mess it up a little bit. So I'm just doing lots of little dashes like this, just making it a bit less smooth. Just to get a little bit of a fluffy ness to it. So actually my monkey's probably come out a little bit chunkier, a little bit shorter and a little bit wider than my first one, but that's fine. It's probably good to stop fiddling with it. So when you think you've got the shape, just stop. You don't want to keep going and then ruining it, because I think I'm definitely getting to the point where I'm probably going to ruin the shape. So once you've got that shape in, we're actually going to pop a little bit more white into it. So I'm going to just grab a bit of white and mix in. So it's just going to go a tiny bit lighter than what we've just been using. So just a tiny bit lighter with a bit of white. And we're going to add a oval shape on top. But actually, this is a bit more like a circle, isn't it? This bit. If you look at just this bit here, it's kind of a smiley face in itself. So we've got the circle, and then we're going to add the eyes and the mouth. But on the monkey, that's the nostrils, and that's still the mouth. But yeah, this shape in here is a nice circular / slightly oval shape. And the reason why I've done it a bit lighter is so that we can see it against our body. And that might just be a tiny bit too light. There we go. And I'm going to make this into that shape. So I'm making it quite big because I want it to have a nice big smile. I'm just using that flat part of the brush. Again, I'm not being too neat with it because he is quite fluffy. So push the brush around. My monkey is going to be very, very sideways, I think. That's fine. So just take a step back and make sure you're happy with the shape. And I can see that one side is slightly bigger than the other. Okay, so like I said, it's going to look really strange. And this is probably the weirdest bit. Actually, no, when we add the eyes and the ears, that's when it gets to the really weird step. And then we're going to add all the dark brown fur to make him look more like a monkey. So let's make it a tiny bit darker again. So we're just going back to the shade that we used for his tummy. So to do that, you can just pop a little bit more black in. Just the tiniest little dot. So it's not going to change the colour completely. It just makes it stand out against our mouth and the nose bit. Otherwise it gets a little bit messy and it makes it really hard to see later on. So if you have a look at the monkey's eyes, at the top of it, it's kind of like an M shape. So let's do it nice and slowly. So I'm going to start at the top of my circle / oval shape, like this. So I've got my brush flat ways. So you can use your small brush or you can use your little round brush for this one, whichever you find easiest. So I'm starting at the edge of my circle. So it's, yeah, if I was going to do a straight line, it would go right down the side of that circle. And then we're going to add the M shape. So I'm going to do a little line that goes up. I'm going to twist the brush round and bring it back down. That's one side. And then we need to add in the other side. I think mine looks a little bit thin, so I'm probably going to make these just a little bit bigger and neaten it up. But the good thing is that we're going to add the dark brown colour on top anyway. So if something doesn't quite look right, so now it kind of looks like a bunny rabbit, doesn't it? Kind of looks like a little bunny sort of wrapped in a blanket or something. Yeah, when we add the darker brown, we can easily just correct things and move things about by bringing the sort of dark brown over the top. So I'm just making my eyes a little bit wider, or where the eyes are going to go, so a bit wider. And then we need to add the ears in. So the ears are just little half circles right where the eye bits touch the circle where the nose is going to go. So I'm just going to use my brush like this. So I'm just pressing it round and in. So I'm using the brush width, so that all the bristles are going to go round in a half circle, like so. And then we can do the same thing on the other side. So this bit does kind of need to be slightly symmetrical, which I'm definitely not doing very well here. So if you want to turn your canvas like this, so it's slightly on its side, that will really help to see if things are kind of even or not. So I'm just gonna, does that help in any way? It's definitely helping me, I think. So yeah, these ears kind of need to be somewhat in line with each other. There we go. Okay, it's starting to look a little bit more like a monkey. Kind of. So we're going to go back to that light colour in a second, but for now, we are going to rinse off our brush and go back to our dark brown. So that was my light brown. Kind of looks a little bit grey on the camera. And this is the dark brown. So make sure you rinse off that brush as much as possible. And if you need to mix up some more dark brown, then that's fine. I've kind of used up most of it, so I'm going to mix a bit more up. So all the colours were red, yellow, and black. That was all the colours we needed. Red, yellow, and black. I mean, you don't really need any white in there at all. But if you want to make it a slightly lighter monkey, then you can. You can add a bit of white just to brighten up a bit. I'm going to keep mine a nice dark brown. Something a little bit like this, so it's really going to stand out against the tummy. So the first thing we need to do is add in his body. So we're basically just adding a U shape. So starting from the top of this shape in here, and we're going to do a U all the way around like this and all the way back up to the top. So you can make this as thick or as thin as you want to. I'm going to be really messy with the brush so that it looks nice and fluffy. So I'm going to start right at the top where his shoulder is going to go, and I'm going to drag it round, keeping it roughly the same thickness all the way around. Going underneath where his tummy is, and then same thing on the other side. This is where you can start making things a bit more neater as well. So I know I'm doing messy brush strokes, but you can make it more symmetrical, because my tummy was definitely a little bit lopsided. So if you need to turn it on its side, really, really helps. And I'm making the outside nice and fluffy. So remember, we can flick the brush outwards so we don't end up with them having a nice neat trim. We kind of want them to look nice and messy and fluffy. So you can do a couple of brush strokes going into the tummy as well, just flicking the brush inwards. And then flicking it outwards on the shoulders and going down his tummy and on the sides. Okay, so he's very, very fluffy. It now looks like he's wearing a nice fluffy coat or something. Okay, it's nearly there. We're nearly looking like a complete monkey, which is fantastic. So we're going to leave the head a little bit more time to dry, so we can start adding in his hands, well, the arms. So my branch is very, very close to my monkey. So he's going to look like he's got quite a small arm. That's fine, that's poor planning on my part. So I'm going to go from the top of the monkey's body, so right up here, where the shoulder would be. So I'm going to bring this right closer. So just at the start of the body, I'm going to use the flat part of the brush, and I'm going to drag this line up towards the branch, just like this. And I'm going to make it a little bit thicker, so it looks like he's got nice strong arms to hold him up. And we can make it nice and fluffy as well. So flick those brush strokes out. I think that'll be fine. I think we can have this hand on top of there. Feel good. And then the other one is going to be going from the other shoulder. So on this side, and then we're going downwards. So I'm going to go down towards that bottom right corner. And I'm going to flick the brush outwards to get the fluffiness. So we look super, super cute and cuddly. Okay, so that's the arms. If you want to make your arm a little bit bigger, what we can do is we can add another vine in, which I think I might do. Just to make it a little bit taller. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in between some of my leaves and I'm just going to add another vine in. Just going upwards like this. That'll probably do. And then we can make the arm go a little bit taller. There we go. That's a little bit better, isn't it? You've got slightly longer arms to swing with. Much better. But you might have done yours perfectly, which would be fantastic. But if not, if you've done exactly the same as me, then just add another vine in, or just keep the arm nice and short. It could just be bent, and that's absolutely fine. So the legs then are slightly strange. So we'll just do this a little bit slower. So we'll start with the right leg, and we just need to go from the bottom of his tummy right down here, and going out to the side, I'm just going to add a little dash. So going towards that bottom right corner, I'm just coming out from the bottom of his tummy towards that right. I'm going to make it a little bit fluffier, so I'm adding in the fluffy bits. And then we need to add his other part of the leg. So this here is his knee. And I'm going to turn it down so it's going straight down towards the bottom. And I want to have enough space for a foot to go in, so I'm probably going to just stop there. There we go. And then we need to do another leg, which is going to be going up to the left-hand side. So I said I was going to do my monkey smaller, and I think he's actually turned out a bit bigger. There we go, that's fine. I will be able to hopefully just squeeze on some hands and feet. Okay, so the last one is like a mirror image of this one, just with a slightly longer bottom part of the leg. So I'm going to go out this way, doing a little dash for his thigh, and then I'm going to add the curvy bit for his knee, and then I'm going to come straight down like this. And that's ended up just a little bit lighter, so let's just make my brown a bit darker again. Making it nice and fluffy. We've got one leg that's much bigger than the other, so let's go ahead and make this other leg a little bit thicker again. So I think I'm probably going to end up going off the bottom of the canvas, I think. So I'm just going to see the bottom part of my foot, but I will talk through it so you can get a whole foot in as well. There we go. So that is the body, and it's definitely looking like a monkey now, isn't it? Hopefully. He's a very, very chunky monkey. I've definitely gone over the top with his fur, but I think it's cute. I think he's just had a very big breakfast. So we're going to add in his hairdo, so the top of his hair, and we can switch to our slightly smaller brush. Actually, no, hang on. Let's just rewind a second. Let's use a very dry brush, so the big brush, very, very dry brush, and without a lot of paint on it, we're just going to do a couple of flicks of paint just in the lighter patch of his tummy and underneath his chin. Because putting it underneath the chin is really going to help define what is his body and what isn't his body. Oh, hi, Jane. I'm glad it's going well. That's really good to hear. So yeah, I've just done a couple of little bits. Kind of looks now like he's got a beard. It's fine, I'm just going to keep going. Just blend it out a little bit. So we're not covering the light area. If you end up doing a bit too much, like I've done, just go back to the light colour. And you can do a couple of brush strokes back over the top. All we're doing is just making the top of it just a little bit darker so that we can see what's the neck and what is his tummy. Oh, hi Elodie. What a lovely name. Hello. I'm glad you're enjoying it so far. I'm glad it's looking good. I can't wait to see it. So at the end, I will explain how to share your paintings with us, because I love being able to see all of your fantastic creations that you can do at home. So yeah, make sure you keep taking them photos because it's super important. So let's switch back to our smaller brush now. And I'm going to use that dark brown still. So go back to the dark brown. And what we're going to do is start at the top of, let's start from the ears. Let's just do that. So we're going to go on top of the ears like this, and I'm just going to add a brush stroke that goes over the top like this. So we're kind of just adding a little dash on the top of the ears, and they need to be quite fluffy. So I'm just going to do a couple of brush strokes flicking outwards, giving him a nice fluffy top of the ear. Then from here, what we need to do is add in like a dome shape. So it's going to go up like this next to the eyes, where the eyes are going to go. And instead of following the M shape straight away, what we're going to do is we're going to go straight up to add in this dome shape. So it's like a big round shape at the top for the top of his hair to go. Then we can come back down the other side next to the other ear. And then we can finish off that little bit with another little flick on top of his ear. Okay. And then we don't really want him to have a see-through head, so let's just add a couple of brush strokes going over the top, kind of like where this is like this eyebrows. That little M shape is pretty much the eyebrow, so we're going to go over the top of that bit, fill in the gaps. And if you want to flick his hair up at the top, then you can do as well. Give him a little stylized hairstyle. Stylized hairstyle. And again, this is kind of where, if your monkey's face has gone a little bit skew-iff, a little bit unsymmetrical, then you can go ahead and neaten things out with the darker colour. Just grabbing a bit more paint. I want his head to be a little bit crazier. A nice big sort of quiff at the front. So it looks like he's swinging through the trees and it's pushing his hair up. Okay, so that is his hair. With a little bit less paint on your brush, let's just do a little dash just inside his ear. So it looks like we can see the side of his face going downwards. And he's got some fluffy bits inside of his ear. We are so nearly there with this painting, and I'm so excited. We need to add in some hands and feet, and then some eyes, because he needs to be able to see. So let's go back to our light colour that we used on the tummy and his nose. So I've pretty much used up all of my colour, so I'm going to have to mix up a little bit more. So I'm going to use yellow, red, plenty of white, and then a tiny little bit of black to tone it down a little bit. Otherwise it ends up as a bright orange colour. And that black really helps to keep it a nice brown shade. Let's see if that works nicer over the top of that. There we go. I'm just going to use that colour. I think I did a bit too much darker brown on my tummy, so I'm just going to do a couple of lighter colour over the top. Okay, that's better. Okay, so the hands, we'll start with the one that he's swinging with. So all we need to do is add in 3 bumps like this. I'm going to go right at the top of the hand, right on top of the arm, and I'm going to add in 3 U shapes. So I'm going to go down with the brush, and then up. Down with the brush, and up, and then again. So we've got 3 U's, and then to join them all together to the top of his hand, we need to add in an arch shape. It's going to go from one side to the other, and then we obviously need to fill it in so we can see that that is his hand. So it's his fingers kind of going over the top of the vine. And once you've filled it in, you'll be able to see if you need to make it a bit more defined or not. So I've just had to go back in and make my U shapes a little bit more kind of pointier. Okay, so that is one hand. The next one that I didn't add in on this one, kind of forgot about it, is all it is so that you can do, do they have 5 fingers? They do have 5 fingers, don't they? Yes. You can do as many fingers as you want to do, and I'm just going to add in a couple of flicks. I've got one finger that's going this way, another finger that's going downwards. He might be holding a banana, so in that case you could do this same shape with a banana sticking through it, and that would look fantastic. So that is his left hand, so his thumb needs to be in there as well. Okay, so he's got a thumb, then he's got a finger, and another one. And I'm going to just keep looking at my hand to remember what it looks like. The thumb, and then some more fingers. Oh, that's gone a little bit dark. So you might end up going off the edge of the canvas. That's fine. So it kind of looks like he's reaching for another vine, maybe. 1, 2, 3, 4. One more. There's one hand, oh sorry, 2 hands. And then we need to add in some feet. So my bottom foot has kind of disappeared off the bottom here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add in 3 little bumps for his feet, for his toes, sorry, just sticking out actually, maybe just one. Just at the bottom here. So if yours has done the same as me, where your foot has kind of disappeared off the bottom, whoops, then you just need to add a little dash for his toes. If you have got plenty of space and you've been very sensible with the painting, then you can have space for your foot to go. So all it is 3 big lines like this, just going into a point at the bottom of his foot. Might be worth starting from the bottom of the foot, and then you can add in 1 dash going this way, and then another one that's slightly longer in the middle, and then another one at the bottom. So that is 1 foot, and then the last foot is the one over on the left-hand side. Very similar to the hand that we've done over here. So it just needs to be going off to the left. So again, poor planning on my part, it's kind of going to go off the edge of the canvas, which is fine. So I'm going to make it twist slightly, so it's kind of going out to the side like this. So I'm flicking it out. So actually, when I said it's like the other hand, it's kind of not. But we could add in a thumb bit going this way. So we've got the thumb, and then we've got the other toes going that way. Okay, we're on to the last couple of steps now. So once you've got all those features in, take a big step back, take a photo, and if there's any other bits that you want to work on, Now is a good time to do it before we add in the eyes and the mouth. So I'm just going to use my slightly lighter colour that I've been using for the hands and feet, just to do a little bit more on where his eyes are going to go, because that's kind of a bit too dark and a bit too see-through still. So I'm just going to lighten up this middle bit here. If you've already done it a good colour and you don't need to lighten it up, then that's fine. You probably don't want it to be exactly the same as this bit, so I'm probably going to just add a little bit more black in. So it still needs to be a bit darker than the nose and the mouth, but as long as it's not see-through, that's all that matters. No, that's a bit better. It's a bit less see-through. I could see all those leaves coming through. And I know that once the eyes have gone on, it's a little bit tricky to fill in the background. So, if you've just done what I've done, and you have painted over that bit again, let's just let it dry for a couple of minutes or a couple of seconds, and we can add in his nose and mouth first rather than do the eyes first. So for this bit, if you would like to use a small pointy brush, you absolutely can do. I'm just going to be using this brush, but using it lengthways. So exactly the same way that we did our vines right at the very beginning. So I'm just going to use a little bit of water, and I'm going to mix it into my black, so it goes a slightly more runnier consistency. So that just means it's not as sticky. And you don't want too much paint on your brush. The more paint you've got on the brush, the more chance it's got of being a bit too thick. So I'm just going to scrape it off. So I've got barely any paint on those bristles. And you could do your monkey with his mouth open. You can have his tongue sticking out. He could, I don't know, be pulling a face. I don't know how you do that, but have a go. I'm just going to stick with one big smile. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it on its side so that my monkey is upright. So I'm going to start with a little dot right in the middle of this oval shape, so that I kind of know where I can, where the middle of the mouth is going to be. Can we use that as a nice reference point? So then from here, remember to leave those short bristles of your brush if you're using the same as me. We need to go out to the side and then flick upwards. So I'm going to give him a nice big cheeky grin. That's definitely a very big smile, isn't it? And then same thing going the other way. Gosh, I think this is the hardest bit of the whole painting, is trying to make it symmetrical. So you might want to turn it upside down. That might help. Whatever helps you to get your monkey's smile to be symmetrical, go for it. Okay. His mouth is probably a little bit high up his face, but that's fine. He's got a slightly bigger chin. Here we go. And then we just need 2 dots for the nose. So for the 2 dots, you can turn your brush the other way round. So using the wooden part of the brush, feels very strange, I know, but if you use the wooden part of the brush, you can just nice and easily get 2 dots in for his nostrils. And we've kind of got that smiley face going on there, so we've got the 2 eyes and the nose on that section. Okay. Last little bit before we start adding in a couple of flowers is to add in the eyes. So you can do your eyes like 2 circles, or you can do them as ovals. He could be winking, so you can have like one eye shut. That was not a very good example of a wink. But yeah, it's totally up to you. So I'm going to go back to the normal part of the brush of the bristles, and I'm going to add in 2 ovals. And just take your time with this bit, because you probably want this to be quite symmetrical. So I'm just going to start with 2 little dashes, hopefully that are going to be in line with each other. There we go, and we can just make them a bit bigger. So I'm going to just extend it, so I'm making it a little bit bigger, to make them nice big ovals, nice big eyes. Just on top of where the nose is. And they kind of need to be the same size as well. Sorry, I know I'm kind of in the way. It's not easy. So just take your time and try and get them as nice as you can. Okay, I'm probably going to stop there, otherwise they're going to end up getting bigger and bigger. So the more you fiddle with it, the bigger they're going to get. So I think that'll probably do. And then we can go back to the wooden part of the brush. So just wipe off that black paint. And I'm going to add a little bit of a highlight. So with a big blob of white paint on the brush, really big blob, I'm going to press really lightly so that I don't take off any of the black paint. And I'm just going to add a little white blob in the top left corner of the eyes and another white blob in the bottom corners. Now you can add like eyelashes. I've done it so that the eyebrows are like this bit in here, but if you want to add like his eyebrows in like this or something, then feel free to wax some eyebrows on as well. But while we've got the white paint on the wooden part of the brush, we can do our last couple of steps, which is just to add in a couple of flowers, which I've just done with just dots. So I'm just dotting in some white paint throughout the vines, and it just adds a bit of something else into the background. But you don't have to do this bit if you don't want to. I'm just doing a couple of bunches of white dots. And if there's anything else you want to add, please do just go ahead and add whatever you want to add. And the last thing that you need to do, or the two last things that you need to do, is you need to come up with a name for your monkey. So I feel like this looks like a baby brother monkey. That looks like an older brother monkey. So what should I call it? Don't know. Thinking this one looks like a Harry. Harry the monkey, is that the name? Yeah, Harry. You can obviously Harry is a name, but for a monkey, yes, I'm gonna stick with Harry, and I think he looks like a Ted. So that's my monkeys. If you would like to now sign your paintings as well, that would be lovely. So you could put your monkey's name on the painting. You could then sign that underneath, or you could put it on the back. So you've got a nice space there. You can put a nice little message on the back. It's always good to date it as well, so you can sign and date it. And then take a big step back from your gorgeous cheeky monkey paintings and take a photo. So there's lots of ways you can send your paintings, well, photos of your paintings. Don't actually send your paintings to us. You can take a photo and you can email them to us at info@brushparty.co.uk, or you can upload them to Facebook if you've got Facebook, or Instagram. And if you tag us, you can use the @brushparty on Facebook, and then you can do @brushpartyuk on Instagram. So there's two different tags. Or you can go directly onto the Brush Party page, and if you click publish post or create post, you can upload a photo and you can pop a little comment as well to see if you enjoyed it, and that will come up onto our Brush Party's newsfeed. So everybody who follows Brush Party will see your paintings on there, and you'll probably get a couple of nice little comments from everybody. So yeah, I'm hoping that you've enjoyed yourselves this morning, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your half term, whatever your plans are. And yeah, we've got lots of events coming up, so have a little look at our website for upcoming events and things like that, and I'm looking forward to seeing them. So that's everything from me. So I will say goodbye and see you all again very, very soon. So thank you. Bye.